Heisler. Welcome. In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about ancient China. Today, we're going to be talking about the first dynasty, which is the Shang dynasty, which lasted from 1600 BC to 1046 BC. The Shang dynasty grew into power after Shing Tang defeated the evil king Zhai of the Zhai. The Shang ruled around the Yellow River for about 500 years. During this time, they went through a lot of rulers and capital cities. Also, the government became corrupt, which allowed the Zhao dynasty to take over.
Oh hey there, so you want to know about the Zhao dynasty, do you? The Zhao dynasty lasted from 1045 BC to 256 BC. It was also the longest lasting dynasty in history of China. The Zhao dynasty came to power when a man named Wu Wang led an army across the Yellow River to overthrow the king of the Shang dynasty. The leaders of the Zhao dynasty introduced an idea of the mandate of heaven. This concept taught that leaders gained their authority to rule from the gods. They believed that the Zhao overthrew the Shang because the Shang had become tyrants and the gods allowed them to fall. The government of the Zhao was based on a feudal system. The later period of the Zhao dynasty is famous for the two major Chinese philosophies, Confucianism and Taoism. The Chinese philosopher Confucius lived from 551 BC to 479 BC.
Mr. Mosey, who is Confucius? That's a good question. Let me tell you. Confucius was a philosopher who created his own religion. Today, his philosophy is known as Confucianism. Here are some of the ideas of Confucianism. Treat others kindly. A man should have good morals and ethics. One should practice moderation of all things. Confucius also believed in a strong centralized government. His later years in life, Confucius traveled through China teaching his philosophy. His followers then wrote down his teachings in a book called the Analects of Confucius. Confucius would then later die in 479 BC of natural causes.
I'm back. Did you guys miss me? Now we're going to get into talking about the daily life of ancient China. First, we're going to talk about farmers. A vast majority of the people in ancient China were peasant farmers.
Miss Goulet, would you want to be a farmer in ancient China?
Not quite. Although they're respected by China for the food they provided, they did live tough, difficult lives. The typical farmer lived in a small village of around 100 families. They worked in small family farms. They had plows and they had animals to help them, but they also had to do a lot of their work hands-on. Did you know that farmers also had to work for the government? They had to take out 1 month each year to work for the government. They also worked for the military or worked construction projects, like building canals, city walls, or palaces. Farmers also had to pay taxes to the government and give them a percentage of their crops. Now we're going to move on to food. And this all just depended on where you lived at the time. So if you lived in the north, you ate a main crop called millet, and if you lived in the south, you ate a main crop called rice. Eventually, rice became the main staple of the country. Also, farmers kept pigs, chickens, and goats, and people that lived next to the river usually ate fish. Now we're going to talk about life in the city, and let me tell you, that's a lot different. People had a variety of jobs, like merchants, craftsmen, and government officials. Many cities' populations in China grew very large, even having totaling numbers of hundreds of thousands of people. The city of China was surrounded by packed walls of dirt. At night, the gates were locked shut so no one could enter or leave. Now we're going to talk about the family life in China, and it is exactly what you'd expect. The father was the head of the household. The wife and children were required to obey him no matter what, and the wife had to stay home and take care of the children and house duties. And you want to know what sucks? You can even decide who you want to marry. Your parents did. A big part of the Chinese life is that you had to respect your elders no matter what age you were. The respect to the elders even extended even if they were dead. The Chinese would often pray and give sacrifices to their ancestors, and the respect of elders was also from the teachings of Confucianism. Let's get into school now. Back then, only wealthy boys could go to school, and they learned how to write using calligraphy. The young boys also learned about the teachings of Confucianism and poetry. They had to know these important skills to become government officials, and noblemen. Lastly, we're going to talk about the women. Back then, the women had it very difficult. Back then, women were a lot less valuable than men. Sometimes, even if a baby girl was born, they were set outside to die if the family didn't need it. Back then, in that society, killing your baby was okay. Also, they had no say-so in who they would marry.
Oh, it's you again. Well, as long as you're here, let me tell you about the Silk Road. Legend has it that silk was first invented by the wife of the Yellow Emperor, Li Zhu, in the year 2696 BC. The idea for silk first came to Li Zhu while she was drinking tea in her garden. A cocoon fell in her tea, and she saw that it unraveled and had a fabric that was both soft and strong. Li Zhu soon figured out how to combine the thread with fibers to make a long, durable thread. She also created the loom, which helped her to create cloth out of this silk. Li Zhu also figured out how to produce silk on a mass scale. She planted a bunch of mulberry bushes for silkworms to feed off of, and she then taught China how to make silk. The ancient Chinese bred special moths, which they used to produce the quality silk they wanted. In ancient China, silk was a very valuable resource. Only those who ranked high in society could wear it. It was also used as a type of currency back in ancient China. Silk became a prized export of the Chinese. Nobles and kings of foreign lands desired the valuable resource. Emperors and nobles of China wanted to keep the process of making silk a secret. Anyone caught spreading the process would be put to death. The Chinese managed to keep the process of making silk a secret for over 1,000 years. However, in 550 CE, the process was spread around to other countries.
The Han Dynasty ran for over 400 years, from 206 BC to 228. The Han Dynasty started from a peasant revolt against the Qin Empire. The Han Dynasty was a period of advances in science and in education. One of the most important inventions in the Han Dynasty was paper. Paper allowed the government to keep records and for schooling. Other important inventions included iron casting, crop rotation, and acupuncture, as well as advancements in engineering, medicine, and agriculture. Life during the Han Dynasty was difficult. The rich lived in big houses with silk robes, while the poor lived in crowded houses and with little to no food. Merchants before this time generally were not respected, but due to the Silk Road, they were able to become rich and trade more often. Some facts about the Han Dynasty is the biggest products in the Han Dynasty were iron, salt, copper, and silk.
Now let's get into religion. In ancient China, there was 3 major religions or philosophies that shaped ancient China. And they are called the 3 ways: Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism. First, we're going to talk about Taoism. Taoism was founded in the 6th century by the Zhou dynasty by Tao Zhu. Tao Zhu wrote his beliefs and philosophies in a book called the Tao Te Ching. Taoism believes that everyone should be one with nature and that everything has a universal force flowing through them. Taoists didn't believe in a lot of rule or government. In this way, they are very different from the people that follow Confucianism. The idea of yin and yang comes from Taoism. They believe that natural forces are balanced from yin and yang. These forces can be thought as light and dark, cold and hot, and male and female. These opposing forces are always equal and balanced. If you can recall in the beginning of the video, we already went over Confucianism, so we're just going to head right into Buddhism. Buddha was based on the teachings of Buddha. Buddha was born in Nepal in 563 BC. Buddhism spreads throughout much of India and China, and they believe in rebirth as yourself. They believe that the cycle of rebirth is completed once you live a fulfilled life. At this point, the person's soul should enter nirvana. Buddhists also believe in a thing called karma and believe that all actions have consequences. Actions today will come back and help you or hurt you. I wasn't expecting anyone today. Come in.
Mystery document.
Oh, thank you. But is this Buddha the one that came up with the concept of karma?
Kayla, you're a dumb.
How dare you? That's what I call karma.
Restarted. Today his philosophy. Look at this bracelet.
Shut the freak up, Jared.
3.
Moving into religion. In ancient China, there's only. Are you freaking serious, Jared? No, she throws shit.